This is Sessions with Sara Cate and Ashley, a podcast that explores the feelings, emotions, and experiences of what it means to be human in this world. This podcast is intended for educational purposes only and is not meant to replace therapeutic services of any kind. Please refer to the list of references if you need support.
And before you dive in, please like, subscribe, comment, share with anyone you think might also connect with today's session. Our goal is to reach as many people as possible, and we are endlessly grateful for your continued support. So, let's get to it.
Okay. Welcome, everyone, to another Sessions with Sara Cate and Ashley. I am Sara Cate.
I'm Ashley.
And we are here with episode 2 of season 3. Wow, the ball, it's got me singing. The ball is rolling, folks. It's full steam ahead. We are coming into our 3rd season. Very excited. We had our last episode launch early February, and now we're kind of moving through and settling into 2025 and all that comes along with that.
Yeah.
So Ashley, darling,
Yes.
what in fact are we going to chat about today?
Well, we're going to chat a little bit about our friend shame again, but more so, and failure, right?
Yeah.
So like those two words alone can be like very charge filled, but we're going to talk about specifically about releasing the shame around failure.
Mm-hmm.
And so, again, I think we say this most episodes, but like this is Sara Cate and I's experience with these things, and we're coming from the viewpoint of our own lives and our clients' lives. But like when I think about that, like releasing the shame around failure, growing up, I really thought that failure was bad.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I think sometimes still to this day, I see quotes by like very successful people,
Mm-hmm.
and they talk about like that their failures actually taught them more. And I can remember reading some of those quotes as a kid or like as a teenager and being like, this is so insane. Like failure is the worst thing possible. Right. And it was embarrassing, and you like tried to avoid it at all costs. And so I think that that's why this is so important for me, because I know I'm not alone in that.
No,
And I
not at all.
I wish I would have had some tools, right? To be like,
yeah,
what is a quote failure, and who decides what a failure is in the first place? Right. And then how do we soften that shame that comes around it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think, what was coming to mind as you were saying that is like really reframing this concept of mistake, failure, like missteps, right? And just and how we equate that then to our goodness, right? That's where the shame component comes in, because then we shame ourselves and we equate, if we fail at a relationship or fail at a job or fail at a project or whatever it is, that then that tells us we're unworthy, we're bad, we're not good, like they're so sometimes inextricably bound that we can't, we're so afraid to fail, or we're so afraid to make a mistake that we actually miss opportunities for shift and transition and change and growth points, because that fear is so present.
Right.
And just really that fear of even feeling the failure, i.e. then feeling the shame, right? We just try to avoid shame so much.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, I'm sure hundreds of books written about shame and how in somatic experiencing, they called shame the great inhibitor.
Yes.
It inhibits us from doing things and taking chances and risks and stepping forward into our own lives a little bit more fully, because it shuts us down.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Like the shame is, the definition is we are bad. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't necessarily think that failure is like a bad word. It's just the meaning we've put behind it. Right.
Yeah.
Like, there are things that just don't work out. Like when you like very simply put, like there are some businesses that thrive, right? And there are some that don't. And like that just didn't work out, right? And removing that tie to our worthiness is how we're gonna be able to learn from it. And when I say that, I don't mean that like, you know, everything happens for a reason, but I think that those experiences, we can learn a lot from them.
They can have purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what that reframes. I agree. The everything happens for a reason thing is trash to me in the sense that like it can permit things, it can gaslight us into believing that bad things were supposed to happen to us, and that's not true. I think, but I
Right.
think if you can take something that has happened and find a purpose for it, there
Mhm.
can be a little bit more spaciousness to move the
Right.
shame out of the way.
And I think when we're talking about this of like the softening that shame around failure, it's like that's where we get to the good stuff, right?
Mm,
And that's
yeah.
where we get to like rediscover some of that like medicine that's already within us for how we want to move forward, right? Like, so what happens next? This relationship didn't work out.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens next? It doesn't mean that it's easy. It doesn't mean that I
Oh,
want to
Lord,
like,
no.
or yeah, or that I'm
Uphill
gonna
battle.
like really wish that I get to like live through that again, right?
Yeah.
But but if I can know myself enough through the process, if
Yeah.
I can stay grounded within
Yeah.
myself and
Yeah.
provide myself with what I need through the process, I get to move through it and take the things that really were helpful,
Yeah.
the things that I really loved and learned in that relationship or whatever it is, and I get to move forward with those things. And I don't have to take the hurtful things with me anymore.
No. Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Like it creates distance or spaciousness from, man, I was just having this conversation with a client today where we were talking about she ended up calling off an engagement in
Mm,
and a few years ago and has been in a new relationship and really feels like the trajectory of this relationship is moving towards probably engagement again and marriage. And she's like, I am carrying so much intensity around planning a wedding again because I have this like shame around the fact that the first time it didn't work.
mm,
And we really and it's amazing because she's in such a healthier relationship, such a more vital and a more supportive, I mean, just all around really caring, nurturing dynamic that she was not in. She was very unsafe in her last relationship. And there was this shame in the way of her getting excited about doing this in a way that with somebody that she really is connected to and feels safe with. And like again, that shame, it could potentially block. I know it did for me having gone through a divorce. It blocked me from really for a time believing that I was worthy of love and trying love again.
yeah.
And for me, through my own healing and my own therapy, thank God for my therapist, that she will be on payroll for the rest of my life. That it's given me the distance from it to see because my relationship didn't work, it doesn't mean I'm bad and unworthy of love. It means that there were things in that did not, that relationship that did not bring out the best in me. And vice versa. I didn't bring out the
Right.
best in my ex-partner. Like,
Right.
but to then really discover and explore and learn who I was separate from the story of my goodness or separate from the story of my worthiness in relationship, to
Mhm.
then rediscover and explore that in any of my relationships, not even just my personal partnership, but in any of my friendships or my family relationships. Like I have stepped forward in those with a different sense of worth when I recognize that sometimes when things fall apart, um, they can reorganize in a way that really they were meant to,
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
know, and it gives us, there's this person, and I'll link it in the show notes, but a dear friend of mine has met this person who has a company called Failure Lab. And it literally is around a TED Talks around things that have not worked. I'm fairly certain. And I'm like, I love this.
Yeah.
That like there's this conscious effort being made to say, this didn't work, period.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's just look why, right? Like it
Yeah.
brings curiosity to that
Mhm.
process, which then gives you permission to explore and grow and evolve it, but not be
Right.
buried underneath the
Right.
energetics of shame.
Yeah.
It's really cool. And I think that I hope that we get to have more conversations like this
Right.
around dismantling this fear of failure.
Well, yeah, we're just hopefully maybe offering a different way to view this.
Yeah.
To view, and again, like growing up, I wish I would have had some of that, right? Like I wish we would have had discussions like this in high school about like what happens if that career that you're going to decide when you're 18, because that's when they tell us that we know what we want to do, doesn't work out.
Woo!
And I am like a product of this, right? Like I went into physical therapy. Am I incredibly grateful for where I am now? Yes, 100%. And I'm very vocal about that.
Yeah.
But yowza. Like my journey through my career, I mean,
Twists and turns.
yes. And talk about graduating with a high degree, having
Yeah.
everybody around me tell me how great it is and how amazing it is, and feeling internally that it's not, like
Yeah.
the shame around that I had still sometimes have to like
Work through.
really work through. And
Yeah,
I
girl.
just wish it would have been a conversation, right? Like when Sara Cate and I started this podcast, it was about starting to have these conversations that like we feel like should have been had. And I'm so happy that we're having this one, because I hope that it just, like I said, just gives you a different view maybe of how we can go through some of these things. Because I know that like because I didn't love my career right away, that doesn't make me bad, but I felt
And it
so
doesn't make you the decision to do it wrong.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
And but at the time, that's what I really believed, because
Yeah.
many reasons, right? Um okay.
Well, as you know, if you've listened to episode 1 of season 3, we have a new, what do we want to call this? Offering, a new component
Yeah.
of our little chat sessions where Ashley or I, depending on the day, will be pulling a card. Um, in our way, right? Like, so your way of maybe working with prayer or rituals or any of those things is deeply personal, right? And so like Ashley and I have had an affinity for oracle and tarot and all of these things in our lives, especially I think together we've always had that combined love of just the medicine of wisdom, right? From
Yeah.
different sources and just pulling kind of
Yeah.
openly. So what do you got over there? What are you looking at?
So I'm looking at a hawk. Um,
Oh,
I'm okay. I'm gonna show it. If you're watching, you can see the
oh, it's
picture.
beautiful.
So beautiful. So this is from the same deck I pulled from in episode 1. We're, you know, putting our stuff in our notes. But again, it's from Rachel Faribault, the Spirit Animal Wisdom, Sedona. That's where she lives. She's lovely. Anyways, I could talk about her all episode, but that's not what we're here for. We're here to learn about this
Let's
hawk.
talk about the hawk. We're here to learn about
All right.
hawk medicine.
Okay. Allow yourself to strive for greater heights and purpose
Mhm.
in life without fear. Hawks have the ability to soar high above the ground and view life from a higher perspective. They are fearless when it comes to pursuing what they want. When you need an encouraging guide to help you strive for greater heights and reach for more meaningful purpose in life, call on
Yeah.
Hawk. This powerful spirit will be there to encourage you on your path so you may achieve your greatest potential. When it is time to act, do so with focused intention. When you need to see all vantage points and gain insight into which direction to take, let your higher self take the lead. The vision and clarity that comes from Hawk will help you in making decisions easily and with confidence. Keep sharpening your senses and trusting your innate abilities as you step into your higher purpose. You are encouraged to move fearlessly and trust in the unknown.
Brilliant. Relevant. So connected. The word that's just struck me, and that is the fear.
Yeah.
Fearless.
Mhm.
The ability to rise above the constriction of the fear of failure
Yeah.
and the shame that inhibits your ability to rise above
Right.
and do the thing you're terrified of.
Right. Yeah.
So poignant.
I know. I know.
Love
And
how that works.
huh?
Love how that works.
I know, right?
Every
Wow.
time.
See, 10 out of 10.
10, 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10. But that's how it always is. So,
It is.
okay, this is what's so cool because we didn't, this is me. I lay out all the cards and I let my left hand feel. For me, it feels like a thickness, like a pulling. There's a difference in like air. I don't know how to describe it. The air is heavier.
Yeah.
It like, pulls me towards the card. That's what I feel in my left hand when I draw the card.
Force.
And it's, yeah, force is the word I was looking for. I said thick air, but
Thick air. I know. I felt it. I could feel what you were saying. That's what came to mind for me.
yeah, but it's like, yeah, anyways. Okay. So it's about the wisdom though, right? And
Yeah.
how we don't, we're here just to have these conversations,
Mhm.
but the magic of what the wisdom is within you is really
Mhm.
like the ultimate goal for why we're here, right? Like we're just having these
To illuminate.
conversations in hopes that it gives everybody a chance to view things from a different perspective, to
Yeah.
find compassion within themselves, to find that little bit of softening of the shame around whatever it is, whatever failure you think you had. How can you soften the borders a little bit? And how can you maybe take some of this like hawk medicine and say
Mhm.
like, okay, I can come, the thing said like it soars above, right? And it looks from above down below, right? That's offering you a different perspective. It's
Yeah.
offering you a different vantage point. Where in your life can you look at things a little bit differently? It's not going to just change immediately, right?
No.
But give yourself the opportunity to try to start.
Yeah. And actually what was coming to mind is an exercise that when we've been saying this session, softening the edges, right, around the shame. And so maybe it's even if you can identify perhaps where you feel shame in your body. For me, shame feels like an absolute utter emptiness in my gut. Like it feels like almost like there's no bottom, there's no ground. Like it is a black hole of nothingness that makes me feel deeply under resourced and like unloved, unworthy, all of the things. Like it is empty as hell. What I was kind of like thinking about is like when I think about that emptiness, if I were to even like using kind of the wisdom of the card of like, what would it be like to imagine kind of like feathers so,
Hmm.
like wrapping themselves around that emptiness, right? Like, so if the emptiness kind of becomes like, let's say it's like a really deep, wide oval shape. Can I imagine the softness of a hawk feather kind of around the edges? And then how does that shift that bottomless, empty sensation in my body just ever
Mhm.
so slightly? And
Mhm.
oftentimes, even now, if I'm like kind of sensing into how I experience that, it feels like it shrinks a little bit.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't feel so large in my body, right? Because like
Yeah.
we're gonna have shame. We
Yeah.
are going to experience the sensation, the cognition, the reality of shame.
Yeah.
And let's say, so let's walk through it. You fail at something, quote unquote, and you feel shame about that. How do you just care for that shame, which then helps you almost, if we soften the edges of that and that shrinks a little bit, that's where that different perspective comes in.
Mhm.
Okay, well, maybe that didn't work out and I'm not bad.
Right.
Maybe that thing was wrong and I'm not wrong,
Yeah.
right? Like that softening those edges. So for me, I was using the feather metaphor, but like if shame feels really tight in your body, if you put like a bird's nest underneath it, or you put a blanket that you love around it, or Ashley last session was talking about that comfy sweatshirt that you just like go to every time you need to put something on. that can just kind of, if you imagine that tension in your chest, just kind of having that sweatshirt connect to it, something soft, something comforting, something caring, what happens to that tension? What happens to
Mhm.
that constriction? And when that just even ever so slightly shifts,
Mhm.
just let you take a breath and look at it just a little bit differently. I am not that thing. That thing happened, but I am not that thing.
Mhm.
And I am not that thing, I should say.
Yeah.
And
Ooh.
this is just like, oof, this is the way, right? Like, this is why, again, even beyond naming these things, we want to offer you support and tools where you feel like, if I were to feel that shame, or even if you tracking your own body in this during this session, like, how can you support yourself differently now? How can you know something, sense something, feel something differently? And
Mhm.
what does that open up for you?
Totally.
Right.
Yeah. I just had a session a few hours ago. And one of the things she said was, man, I can't imagine if I would have had this 20 years ago. Like, think of all of the things I could have prevented. And I was like, yeah, well, first of all, if only we would have had the education from the time we were born to how to know ourselves.
Yeah.
Like,
There's a lot of building blocks we did not receive.
like maybe then we
Yeah.
could walk this path a little
Yeah.
with that, like a little bit more of that innate sense of like, here's how you find grounding in these really tough times. The reality of the situation is not many of us actually got that kind of education.
Yeah.
And so it's another space, right? We don't know what we don't know. And we
Yeah.
can only do the best we can with the information we have. And it's never too late and it's never too soon to get to know yourself a little bit better. And
So
this
true.
isn't about, oh my gosh, I could have done so many things differently, or like, I wish I would have gone this path instead of this path. This is about, how do I take the wisdom that we've been talking about all session from all the places that I've gained it from and put it within myself and connect to myself to move forward with that informing us, right?
Yeah.
It's an invitation to use what we have within us. This isn't an invitation to take a inventory of all of the things we could have done, quote, differently, or you
Yeah.
didn't have this then. And that's,
That'll elicit some shame.
huh?
That will elicit some shame.
Yes. Yeah,
That
but
is not a helpful exercise.
yes, but that's what we do to ourselves.
Yeah,
That
totally.
is what we are so ingrained, especially in the society that we grew up in. That's what we're
Yeah.
so ingrained to do.
Yeah, it's very, I mean, because everything is outcome driven.
Right.
And so if the outcome appears negative, bad, wrong, then we somehow
Mhm.
derived that outcome
Right.
rather than how is that outcome made to redirect us
Yeah.
or meant to redirect us.
Yeah. One of the things, this might sound so simple, but one of the things that like helped me immensely after a relationship ended, like literally asked myself, I was like, were you even happy? Like, why am I so connected to this failure, quote, failure?
Yep.
Was I even happy? That's the important question,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
And
And
it,
if you can ask that
yes,
and hear
because
the answer, what is the chance that that's actually what you'll get in the next space?
right. And it's not that me asking myself if I'm happy, if that answer is no, doesn't mean that I am bad or that other person is bad. It means that there was something that drew us together and we weren't the right fit. And like, who cares? Like, that's okay. Like,
Mhm.
that's not
Or if you change jobs, it's the same thing. Like,
right.
what did you need to learn from that experience to help you reorganize, get closer to yourself, understand yourself, so then you can get something that is more in
Mhm.
alignment with you.
Totally. And of
A
course,
person, a place, a thing.
yes, like we go into things
Grounds.
with so much hope. And I want to go into everything I do with so much hope, right? Because
Yeah.
otherwise I wouldn't have gone into it, right?
Yeah.
That job, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
I wouldn't have gone into it if I didn't have hope that it was the right thing. And if it's not the right thing, that doesn't mean
Okay.
that, huh?
Okay.
Yeah. It's like, okay, but again, we weren't given this framework to view
No.
things, right? It was like, okay, we made this choice. We stay with this choice forever. Sacrifice ourselves to stay with the choice for this like loyalty to the
Right.
choice, not a loyalty to ourselves.
Absolutely. And I think this kind of harkens to like another conversation that we likely probably will have now that this is in my brain, is that we're never given, and I know I've talked about this before, but we weren't taught the capacity to tolerate discomfort in ourselves.
Right.
So we do everything to avoid it. We do everything to avoid the failure. We can't label it a failure because it'll make us feel bad, and I can't feel bad in my body. And like that train of thought completely bypasses what you're actually feeling. Whereas like
Right.
if you feel into that sadness about the disconnection or the unhappiness you were feeling in that relationship, if you can build your capacity by having the tools and resources to feel and be with that discomfort, how it will absolutely illuminate what to do differently or how to engage in a way that brings more of that happiness that you now are accessing.
Mhm.
And so it's I think also us learning why when I was like, I'm not trying to like get rid of my shame, I'm trying to support it, I'm trying to help it feel some comfort so it can shrink ever so slightly so I can see what I'm in or where I'm at or how I'm organized in my life is contributing to the depth of that feeling
Yeah.
rather than learning how to. But I need it, I need my shame in some ways, I need my anger, I need my sorrow. All of those things are highly effective emotions in helping us reorganize if we can tolerate them enough to listen and then act.
Yeah. Wow.
Wow.
So good, Sarah Kate.
Another day, another session. So if you find yourself really working and struggling and grappling with the concept of shame, if you find yourself in a position of failure, quote unquote, mistakes, quote unquote, I am bad cycles, listen to this, share it with a friend if someone else is going through this, right? It's easy to recognize when we're in the cycles of negative self-talk,
Mhm.
not only for ourselves or others, right? And we are here to kind of help again create a safe space to have the conversations, number one, number two, to give you the tools to kind of navigate these,
Yeah,
not feeling alone, and with maybe just some equipment that can help.
totally. So until next time, take care, my friends.
Take care. Like, subscribe, share.
Share.
There's the
We'll get
list.
it. We'll get it. And as always, remember,
Yes.
resources are listed if you need
Yes.
support, if you need extra
Yes.
support. And we will see you next time on season 3, Sessions with Sara Cate and Ashley. Bye.